So mimetic desire, as we saw, increases our capacity for both good and evil. It opens us up to intensities of relationship, of feeling what others feel, of desiring what they desire. But that can also lead to conflict. When I imitate the desire of a model that is beyond my reach, for instance, a celebrity, it's unlikely that that will lead to conflict. But when you are in a situation where it's your peers, where it's your friends, and you reach for resources or for the objects of desire, and there's a limitation of supply, you can see how that leads to conflict. Or to give a simple example to show both the positive and the conflictual aspects of desires, two boys might grow up enjoying the same kind of activities. They love fishing, they love a sport, and they might not even be aware of it, but their desires are influencing one another continually. And that commonality of desire is the very thing that nurtures their friendship. They enjoy this similar activities, etc. But you can also imagine that these same two boys enter high school or college and notice the same girl. That can then become, instead of the basis of a friendship, the basis of conflict. Now, the uniqueness of our imitative capacity, the uniqueness of desire, how it is structured within this triangular form between the person desiring, the model of desire, and the object of desire, leads to a unique situation of conflict, because consciousness, human consciousness, doesn't just make me aware of my own internal self, but it also makes me aware of the internal aspects of those who are like me. Now, humans growing up within an environment of relationship, within community, there are ample opportunities to become aware of lack, aware of need. And what we desire more than any one object is a sense of being, a sense of meaning, a sense of value. And that's why the objects of desire can often change. But what is more influential is the model of desire. Because what humans sense they lack is not the car or the house. What they really sense they lack is that sense of value or being, which they identify in a model. And remember, most of this happens unconsciously. Now, when that sense of lack stirs up desire within this triangular situation, and we reach for the same object that causes conflict, because the object was never really what we aimed for, the conflict takes on a life of itself that very often forgets about the object of desire. That's why in the midst of intense conflicts within communities, sometimes they can't even remember what started it. Or what started it looks absolutely ridiculous or insignificant compared to the level of conflict and violence that resulted from it. Because now we're not just fighting for the object of desire, We are fighting for a sense of meaning, for a sense of being. And in that way, there's a type of dabbling that takes place, because I'm reflecting not just the desire, but my own sense of lack is what I start projecting. My own sense of conflict, my own sense of inferiority is what I project on the perceived enemy, who is doing exactly the same to me. And, you know, one of the famous things that Gerard also said is that we fight not because we are different, we fight because we are the same. Now, we think our enemy is the total opposite of what we are. But the more intense conflict becomes, the more the rivals are simply mirror images of one another. Let me give this quote from Gerard. Dabbling occurs as soon as the object has disappeared in the heat of the rivalry. The two rivals become more and more concerned with defeating the opponent for the sake of it, rather than obtaining the object, which eventually becomes irrelevant, as it only exists as an excuse for the escalation of the dispute. Thus, the rivals become more and more undifferentiated, identical, doubles. A mimetic crisis is always a crisis of undifferentiation that erupts when the roles of subject and model are reduced to that of rivals. It's the disappearance of the object which makes it possible. So here we have a beautiful description that within conflict, people always want to point out what is different between my justified violence and the unjustified violence of the enemy. But Gerard takes us deeper to say that at the heart of conflict is this sense of lack. And in that, we are the same.